Just a quick disclaimer before the video starts. I want to announce at 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be starting my first Iron Man profile account. So if you really want to see me suffer for however long after I start that profile, just leave a sub. Support means a lot, and I feel like if I can just push to 1,000, then I have more incentive to do like very painful things. Yeah, I mean, look, all you have to do is just click the subscribe button, and I in return have to give you hours of my life in content, and I think that's a pretty fair deal. But yeah, let's get back into the video. Hey guys, and welcome back to my new and improved Tier 4 Enderman Slayer guide for RCM players. So I've gotten a lot of comments on my last video regarding issues that people experienced during the boss fight, and I want to answer every single possible question that people would have, all in this guide. I cannot stress this enough. Please watch the entire video, as there are very important pieces of information that I give, and I really don't want you struggling and wasting hours of your time because you didn't finish the entire video. I'll be addressing survivability tips, my stats, glitches and bugs that occurred during the fight, equipment and pets, and other very small but important details. This video will be split into 2 or 2.5 parts, so the first part will be a cheese spot, which is much easier and cheaper, or the regular way to fight the T4 E-Man boss, which is more expensive and harder, but has faster rates. I'll also briefly talk about how carrying E-Man works, like if you want to do carry services, but that'll be near the end of the video. I'll have timestamps all listed down below if you want to see which part, and if you want to just skip to the part you want to be at. But yeah, with everything out of the way, let's get into the video. Alright, so first let's go over gear and stats, because I feel like that's the most important part, and I want you to gauge where you are in comparison to where I am. So to start off, I have a hype. The only thing important on this hype is, obviously Ultimate Wise 5, and I have Ender Slayer 7 and I have Execute 6, but you don't need that. I only got it because I wanted to do E-Man Slayer faster. I just bit the bullet and bought the enchants that, made the fight easier. But I will say the increase in damage is very minimal, and I promise you, you do not need it. So I have a warped aspect of the end, and the reason why it's important for this is because I have ether transmission. You can do it without ether transmission, but it's very important because after you spawn the boss, it'll hit very hard. So what you want to do is you want to be able to go to the spot quickly, but I've seen people just kind of like, use easier cheese spots to have like a bigger hole. But I will say specifically for the spot that I'll be showing, it can be hard to get, but I will also address every single possible cheese spot. So I will say this is a non-negotiable. The Overflux Power Orb is not something that you can skip over. I will say that if you don't have an Overflux Power Orb, then the boss fight will be incredibly hard and honestly just not possible. And this is because of the amount of base mana regen you're going to miss out on, and I feel like without it, you're going to run out of mana too quickly and just end up dying. So the Terminator is only useful for if you are carrying E-Man Slayer or doing the regular way. If you're doing the cheese spot, you can ignore this. But if you're trying to do the regular or carry, there's no really requirement, but it just makes your bosses quicker, so if you want to have it, you can, but so if you want to enchant it or do whatever I have on it, you can, but I'll just say you don't really need these, just a base one is fine. Wand of Atonement. So personally, I don't need the Wand of Atonement when I'm doing the cheese spot, but I do need it when I'm fighting it, normally. I will say the Wand of Atonement or the versions below it are very, very helpful. If you're struggling with survivability, this is honestly the way to do it. There's no really other way to get like more healing like passively, as it's one of those things where during E-Man it's like very active boss, so you want something that does it passively, so you don't really have to pay attention to what's going on and just pop the heal. I'll say this is something that's very helpful, and when I was struggling with E-Man, it just honestly was a lifesaver. Reaper Scythe, obviously you need this, whether it be for regular or cheese spot. I prefer using this over term. As for the souls you want, tank zombies I got from M1, and honestly they have genuinely never died. Like, they have never died, so you don't really need to get like super strong things. Just even like F7, F6, F5, just aim for tank zombies because they're very strong. And bro, what is this? Yeah, so tank zombies are the move. Don't go for anything else, as everybody uses tank zombies. Fire Veil Wand, again, is only useful if you are carrying E-Man or regular, so if you're just trying to do the cheese spot, you can ignore those. As for my gear, I'm using like somewhat good armor, but not really, so it's like kind of mid. I'm using Burning Aurora boots, Burning Aurora leggings, and then Wither goggles, as Wither goggles are better than Aurora until like super late Infernal, and even then it's just like, you know, it's debated. So try to go for Wither goggles. So as for the gear, the most important thing I have is the attributes. The only reason Aurora can beat out Storm really well is because of the attributes. If you look closely, 120 intelligence extra on top of the already like 400 something, it's just too much. Like, it beats out Storm so well, and attributes are just so easy to get. You can watch a video on attribute fusion, but it's very cheap, so it's always worth it to get the Aurora, as it's just like an endgame type of like set. And honestly, for the attributes that I have, like Mana Pool and Veteran, it's very cheap. You do not need Mana Pool, Mana Regen. I promise you, it is just too expensive and not worth your time. Mana Pool, Veteran is good, and I've used it throughout my entire fight. Mana Vampire is something that increases survivability. It's like it heals you for the amount of mana you've used. So I would say I recommend you getting that on your set because it just makes surviving way easier. And for my goggles, I have Refrigerate. It's something that scales with like how much mana you've used. It like increases your defense or survivability or something like that. I'd say you don't need it, but for me, I've noticed that it helps. So I do recommend getting Refrigerate. You don't have to get 5, 4, you can get 3. But I will just say the extra survivability really does help when you're tanking E-Man. I don't think it matters as much when you're cheesing it, as that's really easy. But just know that if you want to be able to do a regular Enderman, then, you know, get Refrigerate, as it'll do you a lot of favors. Now, if you notice here, I'm wearing my Mithril coat. Now, if you're fighting the normal boss, use the normal chest plate, but you cannot do the cheese spot without Mithril coat. Like, it's genuinely impossible. And the reason is because of the beacons. So when a beacon spawns, and if you don't get the beacon in time, it'll just one-shot you. Like, it's one of the mechanics of the boss. And this Mithril coat allows you to only take 40%, right? So when you take 40% of the damage, it'll allow you to just heal up back 40% and just keep taking that 40%. Whereas if you weren't wearing the Mithril coat and one of the beacons popped, you would just instantly die. So you need to wear this during the boss fight. Again, this is only for the cheese spot. If you wear this during the normal boss fight, you will genuinely get pounded. As for the pet that I'm using a level 94 Ender Dragon. Nothing really special about it, it's just an epic one. I was able to do it with a legendary sheep. It does make like mana conservation way easier. I've noticed that I don't really run out of mana with the sheep, but Ender Dragon does more damage. And I don't want to use legendary one because I feel like not everyone has that. But for an epic Ender Dragon, you know, I feel like if you're just a regular player, it's way easier to get an Ender Dragon. But also, you know, as Iron Man, you can also use a sheep, because getting a sheep is way easier than attempting to get an Ender Dragon. Just for reference, I do want to show my stats now. So as you can see here, as I'm wearing all this, I have health of 3,300, 800 defense, around 4.5 thousand intelligence. Alright, so let's get into the cheese spot. So there are basically a few locations you can do the cheese spot, and you know, the way you fight the boss is all the same regardless of where you are. But I will say that there is a spot, I believe, yeah, so right here, if you look closely, this spot you can use as a cheese spot. This is the main one. Like, this is the one that everyone else uses because it's just, you know, very obviously in the open. And the final cheese spot is right here. So you can use this spot or the other spots that I've shown you. It doesn't matter where you use it as long as it's just not crowded. I will say I recommend you go into options, video settings, animations, and just turn off explosion. It just makes the game actually like seeable, because if you're doing it with a hype, then like you're gonna be, you know, have a bunch of explosions right in your face. So just turning that off makes your life way easier. Really do that. I'm gonna go into first person here just so I don't instantly like blow up, and I'll show you how to do the cheese spot. So after you spawn him, you want to go to your spot and plop down a Overflux Power Orb. Now you want to go over here and just right click your tank zombies, and they'll be hitting the boss and ending its hit phase. You can't really damage it during its hit phase. You can only do it with tank zombies. And then now you just want to, oh my gosh. So I forgot, you only want to be able to stand on this block. If you know, TP off, you'll fall. So just make sure you're like staying focused and only staying on the block. So right here, you can see that when it does its lasers, you can't damage it. Just how it works. And the next checkpoint for the hit spot is 140 million HP. So you want to damage it till 140 million HP and then do the hit phase again, which is these tank zombies, and just slowly whittle it down. As you can see here, I see the HP through the obsidian blocks. You'll see the Yang Siglif, that's the beacon, but with the armor you have, you can just tank it. Pop one of Atonement, and just try to get it to next hit phase. So when the Enderman is on its hit phase, it can't spawn those beacons. So that's why it's important to like really focus on getting it to a hit phase. Otherwise, it'll just like demolish you. Now here, once you've done your last hit phase, you can just spam. Oh, make sure to stare at those eyes, by the way. They'll come up randomly and you just have to make sure you stare at them, otherwise you'll be like destroyed. Yeah, as you can see here, I'm like taking a lot of damage, but my healing is just, you know, strong enough to be able to fight that. And yeah. So you'll notice that my power orb ran out. A solution to that is you can use the bubblegum item, which doubles the duration of deployables. I don't really use that, but you can. It's like 5 million from the NPC, and it's worth it if you are struggling to, you know, do the boss fight fast. Because as you can see there, I ran out of mana, but I was fine. But that's because I'm just like relatively strong. That's why I'm saying like the cheese spot is really easy to do. You can do it anywhere. Just make sure you're not taking someone else's spot, because people get really mad about this kind of stuff, and it's just like, I don't know, it's really not worth your hassle to, you know, try to do things like that. And yeah, that was basically the entirety of the cheese spot. There are some known things that occur in the boss fight that I didn't experience, but, you know, are a big problem. So if the boss like has like, if something in the chat like shows up and says like due to dark magic the boss spawns into you, the reason is because one, you're moving too much during the boss fight. Like in the blocks you're like doing this too much, and it'll just spawn into you if you're not like doing enough damage. So just make sure you're staying as still as possible. I know that there's some movement required on that little block, but just make sure you're trying to minimize it, otherwise the boss will get angry and just, you know, teleport onto you. So there's that. There's also another known glitch where if you right click the Reaper Scythe during the boss fight, it won't spawn. And I've noticed the only solution to that is to server hop. So if you're like during the boss fight and it's in a hit phase and you just can't spawn your tank zombies, like try like maybe a few more times, but honestly if it doesn't work, you're gonna have to switch lobbies. I don't know why that happens. I think it's like a server entity thing where it just has too many spawns or something and the code just broke. But I will say that if that does happen to you, just switch lobbies. It's the only way I've learned that actually works. So, you know, there's that. Alright, so now let's get into the regular way of how to do E-Manslayer. So for the method I'm about to show, keep your POV like this. It makes the boss fight way easier to do because you're able to see everything that happens, and it just, you know, makes the visibility way better during the boss fight. So this is where, like, I will also say that for this boss fight, I do recommend you have a God Pot, and it's just because of this ability to jump. During that laser phase, you're going to jump over the lasers, and you can't really do that unless you, like, you know, aspect up. But I recommend you just get a God Pot. Makes your life easier. It's just one of those things where you want to be able to focus on surviving the boss fight rather than like small niche things. Oh, someone spawned my boss. If your boss does spawn, don't freak out. Just, you know, go look for it. There's just really no other thing you can do. This is only so big, bro. What? Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'm gonna bring it over here. Oh, I'm dying. Okay. Bring it down here to a nice clear spot. And what you want to do is pop Reaper Scythe and just let it go to town. You can stay from a distance. Oh my gosh, stay from a distance because it hits pretty hard. Why do I have Mithril Coat on? Alright, so now what you want to do is pop Fire Veil Wand and just stay from a distance and just, you know, right click spam. Pop your healing and just up like that. Up like that. And then just really whittle it down until it becomes like that, and then do the next hit phase. Pop your healing again, because healing is super important. You can turn from a distance, but the zombies usually get the trick done. Pop your Fire Veil Wand and just, you know, keep going back to this until it spawns lasers. Make sure to focus on those beacons, by the way. If you don't get those beacons, you're dead. Jump over these little things. Yep, come over here, get that. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah, make sure you're keeping a distance from it. When it turns like that, you just want to pop your tank zombies. And when I mean like that, I mean, see, it's purple. It goes from like, now from here, you can just, oh, bro, stare at those eyes. Oh my gosh. One of the boss fights of all time. pop your healing. Okay, get that beacon and just spam down. I saw he's pretty low, so I can just spam this. And yeah, that's the entirety of the regular way to do it. The main things about those boss fight is just, you know, always pop your healing, because it does, you know, it has a radius of like damage where if you're just close to it, it just takes off your HP. It's just how it is. You can't really avoid it. Those beacons, when those beacons spawn, your number one priority is getting those beacons. You have a decent bit of time before the beacon actually pops, but I just recommend you go for it as fast as you can, just because you never know what's going to happen during the boss fight, and you want to mitigate like any risk possible. Now, I think when it reaches around 70 million HP, I think that's when those little like heads pop out. All you want to do is stare at it. You have your little crosshair, so just stare at it and try to stay safe, because those things do like a decent bit of damage, and you know, if they spawn like those heads can stack up. So if you let them stack up and build up over time, you won't be able to survive the damage that it does. So just, you know, try to get rid of them as you're doing the boss fight. I don't think those lasers hit that hard, but again, you want to mitigate any type of risk while doing that boss fight. And yeah, I mean, you know, during the damage phase, just pop Fire Veil Wand and then spam, but spam from a distance and slowly like get away from it. Don't let it get too close to you or it will hit you very hard, as mage sets are obviously not known for being very strong. But yeah, so the main benefit of being able to do it the regular way is, one, it's slightly faster, and two, if it's just one of those things where if someone takes your G spot, then it's like you can, you know, do it without having to worry about taking someone else's spot and getting in someone's way. So yeah, what is going on? I will say, if you want to use the term to whittle it down instead of a Reaper Scythe, I recommend you aim for its legs. I'm not sure why, but the entity hitbox like registers better when you're aiming for its legs. So if you're trying to whittle it down during its hit phase, and when I mean hit phase, I mean when it says like 100 hits, you know, you can't damage it during that, but you can like whittle it down so that you can damage it. And just for reference, like the checkpoints are, the boss starts at 210 million, first hit phase, second hit phase is at 140 million, and the final hit phase is at 70 million. And at 70 million, once you finish the hit phase, you can just completely destroy the boss and just, you know, not focus on any hit phase and just focus on killing it. Now, I'm not sure if I used my Overflux Power Orb. I hope I did. Honestly, or else I would have ran out of mana. But make sure you pop your Overflux Power Orb right before it spawns. Just get a nice open clear area so you can do whatever you need. But yeah. So carrying E-Man Slayer is honestly incredibly easy. Carrying is very easy as you don't take damage from the Enderman unless you're doing melee. RCM is great for carrying because you can't take damage. During the laser phase, during the beacons, you just don't take damage because I guess it doesn't count as like it aggroing onto you like that. They don't really get mad. I'll show you like from a stronger variant. But yeah, RCM mechanics work like they don't really know that you're hitting them, but if you do hit them with a melee weapon, they will aggro onto you. So carrying is super easy. Just tell your, you know, person to get onto a cheese spot like this, and you stand right here and just, you know, spam like that. Place your power up down and just destroy them like that. You do their hit phase for them, just, you know, doing all that stuff. And this helps your damage too if you're not, you know, if you're like stuck at carrying and you're weak but still want to make money. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. So if you're wondering how I handled the boss fight with way worse gear, I'll link the video down below when I did fight the boss with like very suboptimal, you know, weapons, suboptimal gear, when I really wasn't that great at Enderman Slayer but wanted to teach RCM. Honestly, now I've gotten way better at it, and it's just a very viable way of doing Enderman Slayer, especially when you don't have to commit to a item split katana and a melee set. I've honestly learned a lot from these past few months doing Enderman Slayer. Honestly, I don't do it every single day, but I try to do it a little bit, like every once in a while, just because it's one of those things that I was really interested in learning, and it's not really that complicated, but a lot of people don't really know it because they don't try, and if they do try, they just fail the first time. Everyone has a hype, or everyone at least wants a hype, and I've noticed there's not really that many things to do with the hype once you get it. It just like blows up and does stuff. So adding on to the things you can do with the Hyperion, I feel like doing RCM E-Man Slayer is just an interesting thing to learn, and you know, I hope this guide helps. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Honestly, I appreciate all the support. I've gained like 200 subs in the last like, I don't even know, like 4 or 5 days. So I really appreciate you guys' support. At 1,000 subscribers, I will do an Iron Man profile, and I hope you guys follow me through that, because it does mean a lot to be able to have a, you know, somewhat community watching me do these videos. But yeah, I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.